Howdy folks, welcome back to my channel Train True. My name is Marco, and today I want to do a quick just Q&A on some basics. What you just saw a few seconds ago was footage of a new PR I hit on the weighted dips, and a little bit of physique update in terms of my cutting phase right now. All right, so on to the questions. The most popular question I think I get is usually, what are my macros? And if you look at my previous videos, there's only two, I kind of explained that protein is quite high on my version of keto, or we call it KETOGAINS. So first thing that you guys should do is head over to the KETOGAINS Reddit. I am not the founder, but this has been my greatest source of invaluable information. And then you go to the top, it's stickied, KETOGAINS macro calculator. Click that. Then you could read a little bit on the description, but I think just go straight away into the macro calculator near the top. Instead, you could also just go to the KETOGAINS website, just ketogains.com. And here we start. Okay, so first you got to plug in your information, whether it's weight in pounds or kilos. I think right now I'm around 172 pounds or 78 kilos, give or take. Be conservative, plug in what you think is probably your highest weight. Or at least if you've been measuring consistently, usually like first thing in the morning after you take a piss, or right after your shower in the morning. If you do that, just do it at the same time every day, average it out after about a week and put that number in here. Okay. Now body fat is where it gets tricky. So first, a little tip: most people underestimate their body fat, meaning like they think they're like, oh, I might be 10%, but somebody else looks at it like, no way, you're probably closer to 15. So if you are relying on those scales for home, if you're on keto, careful. They tend to overestimate your body fat actually, because the way on keto that you kind of lose water weight and don't retain those electrolytes as much messes with that. In my personal experience, even at my most shredded, and I think I was below 10% body fat there by a little bit, it said I was at 12 or 13. So for me, on average, I think it overshoots by 2 to 3%. So right now it's telling me I'm at 16-ish%. And if you look at pictures, I think you get a better idea. This is a typical one. I think it's relatively accurate. So, 5 to 9%. I think this guy is leaning more toward the 9% in this picture here, because 5% is bodybuilding stage level shredded. This guy is clearly not that level, but he's pretty good. In fact, the guy looks kind of familiar. Then the second picture, I think I'm in this category, 10 to 14%. Again, this guy's probably leaning more toward 14%, and with bad lighting, I probably do kind of look like this. I honestly think it's kind of bad lighting in this picture too. He doesn't look fully flexed. 15 and 19, I think I'm below this phase. But when I'm bulking, I definitely look like this. And beyond, take your measurements wherever you lie. These are relatively accurate pictures in my experience. If you have that body weight scale, you can use that if you want, because since it aims high, it's okay to aim high at first. If you got a DEXA scan, or there's 5 different methods of measuring your body fat. Keep in mind they're quite off most of the time, so I usually add a couple percent to whatever those things tell me to be more on point. So for me, again, I'm gonna estimate I'm at the worst end of this 10 to 14 scale, maybe 15. So I'll plug that in here. I'll put 14. Okay. Maybe I'm 15, but whatever. All right, so my lean mass is shown here. Over here we got BMR, or basic metabolic rate. Basically means how many calories you tend to kind of burn on any given day. Basically means just your existence. Thermic effective food, TEF, means a lot of people don't know this. If you eat 100 calories of protein, you're not actually gonna absorb 100 calories. Same for fat. The body uses energy to turn food into energy, so that's the thermic effect there. I believe carbs are probably the most easily absorbed, then probably protein, fat, not as easily. I think protein is the one that takes more energy to process. All right, then BMR, you combine those two numbers together, and basically that's what we're looking at. Just happens to be almost exactly 2,000 on the dot, and which happens to be like, that standard 2,000 a day diet. All right, so you scroll down a little bit. You should probably put sedentary if you're a typical office worker. Even if you think you're hardcore in the gym, this one doesn't matter. So I would recommend sedentary for most people, unless you're walking around for your job all day, picking up objects all day for your job. Then you could look down below. Right? So TDEE, or total daily energy expenditure, basically means what you should eat if you just want to stay the same. No gain, no bulking, no cutting, just your existence. This is on non-working out days. So in the middle, you can see lose fat, maintain, gain muscle. I think everyone should be either losing fat or gaining muscle. I don't think you just want to stay the same, unless you're just so big, so muscular that it's crazy, but I doubt it if you're natural. So I generally, on my cut right now, would press lose fat. Caloric deficit, you probably want to put that 10 to 15. I usually don't like 10 because 10 is such a small variation that it's too hard to keep track of unless you're this mad scientist carrying around that weight scale every day, measuring every single gram of food you eat. I'm not about that life. That's torture for me. I kind of did it for a while, which is okay. And then you get used to it and you just know. You look at your food, you could kind of eyeball the macro ratios. So I usually put 15 here to be more realistic. And then over to the right, you can see if I want to lose fat at that caloric deficit, I should have around 1,700 per day without exercise. So I don't have many rest days. I usually have one rest day per week, maybe two. So this would be my rest day cutting level. And with exercise, at first, it's kind of bugged. It doesn't say anything different. So you kind of have to mess with the daily exercise info down below. Press up or down here, or just change the number up. 30 minutes of weights. That's what I tend to do. I don't really do cardio or other. That's what I put in there. 30 is okay. It says around 250 calories burned, because this only calculates lifting weight time, not rest time. I do take big breaks between a lot of my sets. 30 is okay. Sometimes I go hardcore, maybe 45 I put there. But also think about this. You do burn calories after your workout's done, especially if you went pretty hard. So you could put up to 60 there if you're pretty hardcore, but just to be safe, I guess we'll keep it at that standard 30. All right. So now you can see this number, calories with exercise, changed to 1,900 at a 15% caloric deficit. So about a 200 calorie-ish difference there. Okay. All right, then the most important part, I think this part is what most people ask me about, is protein. They kind of recommend 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight up top. But I think we should always, again, in my experience, a lot of other people I've discussed this with, their experience as well, I think closer to 1.2 is better. And I often go to even 1.4 or 1.5. But let's keep it at just safe 1.2. Okay. So that'd be around 180 grams of protein. I think the numbers down below kind of adjust, but be careful. Look at the right hand side. So it says daily calories added up on the bottom, 1,900. So right now that seems to calculate out to losing fat with exercise. So we got 180 protein, 25 carbs. It's generally recommended keep it as close to zero as possible, but as you guys know, it's almost impossible to get 0 carbs per day, no matter what you eat, because even meat has traces of glycogen and carbs. Green leafy vegetables, they have a couple carbs here and there. Of course, most of it's fiber, so that's okay. So 25 to 30, yeah, good number, keep it. And fat, here's at 125. So if you look at my ratios to the right, I got a almost 40% protein, 5 or below for carbs, again close to 0 if possible, and then around 60 for fat. And this adds up to my daily calories with exercise, right? On the days without it, honestly, protein, I want to keep that at 1.2 regardless. So play with this number with fat, if anything. If I put it down to 100, yep, just happens to be a good estimate because, again, I'm pretty good at tracking after all these years. So 100 grams of fat on my rest days, which again are few and in between, but yeah, around 1700 there. That's what it said up top here without exercise. So I'll play with these numbers, but again, don't really go too low. 0.8 on the protein ratio, that's way too low. Only 120 grams of protein per day. I did that at first. It did not work out well. I lost a lot of strength. But 1.2 and above, that's where I started seeing very good results, whether I was bulking or cutting or maintaining, but generally I don't just maintain. So if you want to change it to bulking up top, you probably want to press gain muscle. Again, 15% caloric surplus I think is a better idea than 10, because 10 is just too little leeway. Most people can't go crazy tracking all those macros. Again, it's a lifestyle. You can't just track your macros every single day in, day out. It drives you crazy. So to the right, you can see calories without exercise is about 2,000. Now with exercise jumped up quite a bit to around 2,600. Again, that calories burned, just double check if the number's calculating. Seems like that's still the same. And then go down below again. Even when I'm bulking, I will not go below 1.2 per body weight pound. So I probably, on bulking, could go up to 1.4, 1.5. 1.4 I think is good if I'm bulking. And then play with these numbers down below. So I guess this is calculating closer to my without exercise calorie ratio, because it only says 2,100 here. So play with it. 120. Yep. So that would be around my bulking fat grams if I don't exercise that day. So as you can see, the ratio is around 40 to 55 in terms protein to fat. And on the days I do exercise, I don't think you have to up the protein that much more at that point. So play with the fat. I could go up to like 160, yeah, even past that, 170. Looks like 180. Yeah, 2,500 here. That seems to match up around there with my calories with exercise. You can play with that. And again, you don't force yourself to eat more fat just to hit this number. You could do it in protein. So let's say I want to hit 2,500 calories for that day. I could up my protein ratio to 1.5 and then play with these numbers. I could drop that to 170. Let's say I go nuts that day eating like a whole bunch of relatively lean chicken. That's okay too. 1.6. I never worry about my protein. Gluconeogenesis, that's BS. Don't ever be afraid of it. And it's not just my opinion. There's science. I don't think I have to cite the study at this point. There are like so many forms of research out there showing that GNG, gluconeogenesis thing, is not just going to randomly throw you out of keto, even if you eat like 400 grams of protein, which I have done, by the way, and I don't think I got kicked out of keto. So yeah, play with it. And fat, just reduce it according to whatever you want to hit. So even if I had, let's go crazy, 1.8 grams, which is like close to 250, 300, obviously my fat should go down at that point a little bit. Looks like 150 grams. But as you can see on the right hand side, the ratio stays relatively from 35 to 40-ish% protein. Carbs, again, try to go 5% or lower. And then fat, yeah, 50, 55, sometimes 60%. That seems to be the sweet spot for me. Not just me, a lot of people out there as well. Okay, so explaining my macros, just basically a run through there, took longer than expected, so I'll try to fit in maybe one more question that I'm frequently asked. And that would probably be, do I ever have cheat days, or have I tried CKD, cyclical ketogenic diet, or TKD, the targeted ketogenic diet? And I'm going to keep my answer at a minimum today because this video is getting kind of long now. I'll start with cheat days. Yes, I definitely have had many cheat days. It depends on my goals. When I first started keto a couple of years ago, I stayed away from cheat days. I read up on the forums, took a lot of their advice too, and just common sense. If your body's going to fully adapt to this new form of fat for fuel, you don't want to just go in and out, in and out. Your body needs that time to adjust. So I would say in the first 6 months or so, I maybe had like 1 or 2 cheat days, but definitely in the first 3 months, 0. I was devout, and I highly recommend that as well. Of course, if you drop out of it, no big deal, not the end of the world, but first 3 months, my advice is, yeah, follow it very strictly because it'll make your full fat adaptation much smoother, I think, if you want to get gains in the gym especially, and feel strong on keto. You don't want to mess around with it in the first 3 months. Also, after I got married relatively late last year, I hit my goal. So every couple of weeks I had a cheat day, which leads to my next topic of CKD, or cyclical ketogenic diet. Basically by cheating every couple of weeks after my wedding, I kind of was doing this dirty bulk version of CKD. And I'll make a whole video on that experience next time. But long story short is, I definitely saw a lot of strength gains, but a lot of fat gains came with it. So I'm not going to say that the standard keto diet is better or worse than CKD, but I gained a lot of fat. Obviously on any diet, when you gain a lot of weight relatively quickly, you can gain a lot of strength at the same time. So there's a give and take. I can get stronger on standard keto diet. I can get stronger on the CKD, maybe faster, but think of all the time I have to spend now cutting that extra fat that I gained from CKD. And during that cut, which happens to be something like what I'm doing right now, I'm going to lose some strength gains too, right? So you got 2 options here. All right, and then finally, TKD, or the targeted ketogenic diet. I'll do a video on that as well eventually. I tried it. I don't think I did it enough to give like a perfect answer because, everything is still anecdotal for me. But I did find in the short run, TKD seemed to help my gym or strength output a bit. But after I kept doing it and I compared and contrast with standard, the differences got smaller and smaller to the point I was like, there is no point really for me to just add this extra glucose or straight up sugar to my pre-workout because I felt like it was the same. But I'm going to experiment more. After this cutting phase, I'm going to try TKD and CKD again, make videos on those too, because I've heard a lot of people out there tell me that TKD worked very well for them. Maybe it doesn't mesh very well with me, but who knows? Maybe I just didn't give it enough of a shot. I'll try it again. All right, so I showed you my macros, ran you through that on that macro calculator. A little commentary on cheat day, CKD, TKD. So I'm going to end the video today because I don't want to make it too long. I'll keep my other questions for other videos. I'm just trying to keep content flowing. Please, thank you for your support, but give me a like, give me a subscribe. I want to keep this content going. And I'll leave you guys with a couple clips from past couple days of workout. And go check out my raw shoulder workout video. Maybe I'll try to put that here if I remember. check me out on Instagram at train.true. Kind of show you some of the stuff I eat, some of my lifts, and finally, I'll just leave this video with a couple of those recent workout clips and some food porn, because my wife made some amazing chicken nuggets, or keto chicken nuggets, and she just makes awesome food in general. All right, so stay tuned for my next video. If you have questions, leave them down below. Any recommendations on what you want me to do. Much content to come. Bye-bye. Oh, that close up looks delicious. Ooh. Damn.